So I realized that, this past year has been super traumatic for lots of people. But regarding me, I know that I post a lot of vague shit, and I don't think I've ever really explained timeline wise what has happened in the past year. And it's been a lot. So try to make it as short as possible, I guess. So last year, I don't even remember what month it was, I started working and was super happy. Everything was going great. In December, my mom, before that, a little bit before that, my cat died. And now that all seems so minuscule, but that set off this big thing. My mom and I were just so devastated from this. It was just he was more than blah, blah, blah. It was great. He was great, not it, obviously. And so that happened. And then in December, my mom decided that she was going to go help out her sister in Colorado for 1 month. She was going to fly up there. My aunt wasn't doing too good medically and needed some assistance. And honestly, my mom hadn't seen her baby sister in well over 10 years. So she was really excited. So I didn't realize this till afterwards, but this date will come into play. On December 19th is the day that she flew out. The night before, she had fallen and cracked her rib, at least one rib. So early that morning, I called her an Uber and I walked her down with all her stuff and I helped her into the car and I hugged her and I told her I loved her like I always do. Because whenever we were going to be apart for a significant time, it was always just this real goodbye hug. Because we always saw each other. We always, so it was just, yeah. So she left. And it was weird. While she was up there, she had this really bad migraine. It was probably altitude, and she didn't have her meds refilled yet when she left, so she had to do it in Colorado. She had this really weird migraine for 2 weeks. It was hard to get a hold of her, which was hard for both of us because she didn't have good service. And we talked multiple times a day, no matter what. So, yeah, it was really weird. And when she came out of it, she was just kind of it was really weird. When I was coming out of it, I didn't know how to use my phone, and right off the bat, I'm like, Mom, you need to go to a fucking doctor. That's not your normal migraine. It's just not normal, blah, blah, blah. Very stubborn. She didn't. And then a week before she was about to come home, I was at work, and I got a text from my Uncle Tim, and something about that text, I knew that something wasn't right. It was just usually whenever he would text me or something, it was always just happy birthday, happy holidays, how are you? And it was just I don't remember what it said even. I just remember it alluded to the fact that call me when you can, don't worry, but it's important. And at first I thought it was my Uncle Andre because he was unfortunately dying of colon cancer. And then I thought, no, because if it was him, my mom would have called me. And my heart dropped. My heart just fucking dropped. I knew something was up. So I asked my manager, I was like, I just got a weird text. Can I please go on my break? She was like, of course. So I went. And I called him and he told me that she had had a stroke and a heart attack and she was in the hospital and he knew nothing more. So I went right in and I told my manager something happened to my mom. I don't really know, but I know that I have to go. And I was in tears and she didn't even question anything. She said, go grab your shit, go. And then she gave me a hug, which I didn't know it at that moment, but that was a hug that I really did need. And at some point on the way home, I know I called my brother and I let him know what was going on, told him all that I knew and told him I would call him the second I knew anything more. So then the hard part came where couldn't get a hold of my aunt. Her phone was dead. So I got home. I knew the hospital she was at. I called the hospital emergency room and they said she was just moved. And for 1 second, my heart was like, oh my God, okay, it's okay. And she followed that by saying to ICU. And that she had no information for me, that she had just been moved to ICU. I'd have to call them. So I hung up the phone and I called ICU. And they had no information for me. All they could tell me was she was just moved here. We haven't even done her paperwork. Call back in an hour. In an hour. So at this point, I was sitting at home in my parking lot, in my car, trying to get past the longest hour of my life. and trying to prepare myself for what I knew. For what I didn't want to know, but what I knew. And I called back an hour later, and they had some answers, and they weren't answers I wanted to hear. She had early in the morning, she had a really bad stroke, completely destroyed, I want to say it's the right side of her brain. And we had talked about this a lot before, my mom and I. She had said, if anything ever happens to me and I am in a state where I am a vegetable, or I can't respond, or my quality of life isn't, then I don't want to be here. And that was a firm understanding that we had. And she had also, my aunt knew that as well. And then she had also suffered a heart attack in the hospital from all the trauma. So then I remember at one point I spoke to a nurse, and I hope he did it, but I was like, this is going to sound really weird, but can you please just hold the phone to her ear for a minute? And I heard him put the phone somewhere. I'm hoping that he really did what I asked, and I just said, I love you, and it's okay. And your granddaughters love you, and your son loves you, and it's okay. And then he took the phone back up and said, you can call back for more information. And I spoke to all my relatives and the doctor on the phone. First thing I was asked is by my aunt is, do you want me to fly you here? And at first I said yes, because obviously I felt like that was what I was supposed to say. And then I thought, and I said, is it bad that I don't want to see her like that? I don't want to, I don't want to remember her or see her in that state. And my aunt said, baby, no, that's okay. And then I knew that they were gonna wait a little bit, and then she had no activity. There was no brain activity. There was nothing. So the next call I got was saying that she was gone, just like that. And earlier I had said, remember the date, December 15th. She actually died or December 19th. She actually died on January 19th, a month after the last time I saw her. And that was hard. At this point in my life, I don't exactly remember where it was, but so shortly after that, a lot of our relatives, direct relatives, I guess you could say two groups of them lost their houses and ended up in our 2-bedroom apartment. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 extra people in our 2-bedroom apartment, so there was 9 people total, and it was so hard. And one of them, we actually ended up having to get a police escort to get them out because it was so traumatic and it was bad. One of those people, I remember before work, I was on my way to work and I get a call from my brother crying, saying that they had just been evicted and they're standing out on the street. Mind you, with my 2 very young nieces. So I called my job and I said, I'm so sorry, I can't come in. I just can't. And I don't even know how I did it, but I just did it. I just went into overdrive and I went numb and I just drove and I helped them as best I could. When we went back to get their stuff, we got a moving truck and the whole place had been robbed. Everything was just robbed, everything. All of my dad's photo albums from when he was a child, that was my favorite fucking thing to look through. All of his yearbooks, all of our childhood books, all of my mom's old things. I remember the first thing I saw when I walked into the garage was a piece from my mom and dad's wedding. It was these 2 glasses. And I just walked in the garage and they just shattered on the floor. And I was just like, oh, there's more of my childhood gone, you know? So to kind of ended up, yeah, it was just one big blow after another. All while trying to learn how to grieve as if there's like some kind of proper way. When I think back to myself then that day, I feel so fucking bad because I've been through so much and I've only gotten stronger because of everything I've been through. I mean, I have my moments and my areas that I've definitely gotten weaker in, and I struggle every motherfucking day. the best quote I've ever heard about grief. I don't even remember who it was when I was reading it, but it said something along the lines of, there's a deep, deep hole. And when you first see that deep hole, you fall in the first few times because you're not used to it being there. But eventually, you learn to just walk around it. It's still there, but you get smart and you don't trip. And, so that's roughly what happened with the whole situation with my mom. It's been the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with. Losing someone who is one with you. She was the only human that... Sorry. When you are lucky enough to have that person that knows that when you're going through a hard time, she was the only one able to just sit there, and whatever pain I had, she would just sit there and hold half of it for me. And it made every burden that much less heavy. And without her, I have been learning to hold it all on my own. And it's hard. And not a day goes by that I don't think of her. I still have her she lived with me, all of her stuff. Her oven mitt is in my kitchen. That was the hardest thing, is the little things, just walking around my house and seeing her shampoo, seeing everything that was just her. So it's been hard. Grief sucks, and for anybody else that's dealt with it, for anyone that's dealt with it at a younger age than 29, I commend you, because I'm learning every day, and there are days when it's just not good. And it does get better. I guess it gets easier. There are days when it gets easier, when that hole is just so apparent that I know not to fall into it. And then there's that days when I miss her so much that I just want to jump right in. But, yeah. That's what I got for you.